So, this is a very simple analogy. Most of you will probably figure out what we're doing. So, Frankie, happy Father's Day. Frankie, for anyone who doesn't know, he's married to Joanna back here. Frankie, would you, from where you are up there, from right where your feet are standing, would you be able to help your wife stand to her feet? From where you're at. Can you do that? You can. Okay. But are you able to reach over? Is that Amelia or Eleanor up there? Hi, Eleanor. Can you give Eleanor a nice Father's Day hug from there? So, right? Okay. Now, Matt. I didn't know he was going to drop my ball. I was going to drop the notebook. Oh, that's okay. That's all right.
Let's see.
Janelle. How about Janelle?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Janelle, from where your feet are, can you pick up my book?
No.
My Bible?
But can you give Joanna a quick little back rub? Okay. Now, Jeremiah.
Jeremiah,
Yeah.
from where your feet are, can you help me pick up my Bible and hand it to me?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Simple, but hopefully this will all connect if it is okay.
Yes.
So before we actually get started much further, we're going to have Nancy come, and she's going to read our verse for the day.
So our verse for the day is Matthew 11, verse 28 to 30.
This is a very simple verse. I'm sure this is one that you've all heard before. But it's going to tie in very, very well with the sermon today. Or with,
We hope so.
It's a sermon, it's a teaching. Yeah, okay. All right. Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light. And we have a yoke over our garage.
Yeah, like a yoke for two animals to be yoked together. Yeah. And that's where that word comes from. Okay, so the title of our sermon today is called Be Where Your Feet Are. And hopefully by the time we're done with our sermon or teaching or whatever you want to call it, you'll understand why we have that as the title. We got this idea we were listening to a song, and the person who wrote the song was talking about how they got the idea of Be Where Your Feet Are from someone else. So we're kind of getting this third hand, if
Yeah,
you
this
will.
is not an original.
This is not, we didn't come up with this.
At all.
So,
So when we stand up here and do this, we usually are talking about something going on in our life. I've had a few people ask about our fireplace and what's going on with that, and we are still adding things to it. It has a mantle, it has some things on the fireplace, so we are still painting our fireplace, thinking about that message, for those of you who were here to hear that. So this message that we're going to share today with you, we just share what, it usually comes from something we're going through or processing, experiencing, struggling with, something that God is saying to us again and again. That's really what we kind of offer when we come like this. And then we just are passing it on to you. So hopefully this will be an encouragement to each of you. Hopefully it will make sense. If it doesn't, we apologize. But for us, just to give kind of credit for where the inspiration of this came from, largely, 2 books and 1 song. The song we're going to be listening to in a few minutes. The books, I highly recommend both of them. The first one I read, I think in 2019 we read it. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I know many of you have probably read it. It's by a man named John Mark Comer, who's a pastor out in, I think,
Portland, Oregon, yeah.
It's just a book that we read it, and it's something we couldn't kind of unlearn. We couldn't go back from it.
Right.
It just changed, it marked our lives when we read it. The second one is a book that we just recently read. It's called Reclaiming Quiet, and it's by a woman named Sarah Clarkson. Also highly recommend it. And those books are largely talking about hurry in our lives, busyness, the effects of things like devices and technology and all these things that in many ways are progress, but also people are really looking at them. Another book is by a man named Jonathan Haidt. I know some of you have read this book as well. It's called The Anxious Generation. Actually, I think Daniel referenced it in the message at my service. Yeah. So that's another book that deals with that. We are not going to be focusing on all of those things. We're not going to stand up here and talk about technology or that we shouldn't hurry. We're going to talk about, hopefully, just what God's been saying to us, what He's been calling us to again and again. So.
A fourth thing is a song, and we're going to play this song soon. We're going to talk a little bit and then play the song. But there was a song we just recently heard by Nathan and Christy Knopfels. I could think it was Knopfels. They had a group called Watermark back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they're still making music, and they just put out this song, and it's called Be Where Your Feet Are. And it's a song about, well, you'll hear it, and it's something that it talks about being present, like being where your feet are. That's what we mean by being where your feet are, it's just being present. So all of them, it's just about, being present, being where you are, and being available, being, emotionally, mentally, physically present, wherever it is that we are. Okay, so I think we're going to go ahead and play the song.
Yeah, we debated playing it first or playing it at the end, and we thought, because we reference it so much, we wanted to have you guys hear it. Frankie, it doesn't kind of go on. We can fade it out. I'll kind of give you a signal, maybe like the scissors, you can fade. So this is Be Where Your Feet Are by Christy and Nathan Knopfels. Sorry, we're actually starting it down there. Frankie's looking like, this is your job.
Can you see it in the quiet? Will you trust me tonight?
Okay, so that's the song. And the song made us slow down and stop. And made us think about being where our feet are. And I heard her talking about this song, and she said when she was talking to her husband, by the way, the song is largely written from the perspective of God singing it to us. I should have said that before. But she was saying her husband, Nathan, is the type of man who's right behind his eyes. And
what she means by that is, for her husband, when you talk to him, he's like listening. He's not off somewhere else in his mind. Whereas she was saying that she actually has a harder time doing that. That when people are talking to her, she's like, her mind's racing, she's thinking about other things, it's hard to be present. Whereas her husband is very good at that. I mean, I think of like John Hobbs, our, dear John Hobbs, who's gone on to the big house with Jesus. But he was the type of guy that he never made you feel like he needed to be anywhere else, like you were the only person in the world at that time.
And in this, you see the line there, in a world that's forever elsewhere. That's also a line she said she borrowed from someone else. I can't remember who. Was it Merton? Thomas Merton?
Yeah, Thomas Merton.
And just saying how in so much, it does happen a lot with technology, but it takes us away from the moment. It's just,
And this isn't something that's new in human experience.
Yeah.
This was happening before that we had this technology in our hands nowadays. It's so easy to distract us. But this, of course, is a message that was even before that.
Yeah. So we're not going to talk about technology. That's not what we want to talk about. What we want to talk about is this idea of being present and being where our feet are. Because that is going to look unique for everybody. Everyone has their own, each person has his or her own decisions to make with that, and God will lead. So for us, as we have been processing this, which I actually feel like this is something we've been talking about, for a very long time, but in a very focused way for the last, maybe since like 2019, 2018.
Yeah.
I just feel like this is a conversation we have just been circling back to again and again and again. We keep hearing it from people, and it's just like, I'm beginning to think, oh, maybe this is something we're always going to be going deeper into, this reality. So, as we talked, it doesn't always come out this neatly, but we sort of, as we were processing this, it's one thing when we're talking about this together, it's another thing when we have to kind of put it in a way that we can present it, not just in a conversation. So we did that, and we kind of boiled it down to these three things that we're going to just talk about real briefly.
So, number one, our primary calling, if you will, in Jesus is to follow him and abide in him, to belong to him. That's what we are called to be, is to be followers and to abide in him. And number two, it's part of that. Number two is to be present, to be where your feet are in any given day or moment. And number three is then when we follow and abide in Jesus, when we do that, and when we're present, then God can lead us and use us as we do that, as we do number one and number two, as we abide, as we remain, and as we are present. And then that enables us for God to use us and to love the people that are right in front of us. Our closest neighbors, the people that we meet every day. And I just want to say, this is something that, we were talking about this before 2019 too.
Yes, we were.
And I will say right now, this is something that I will speak personally for myself. I've had a hard time being present. I'm always thinking about what I need to do, what's coming. I'm thinking about tomorrow, and it's very detrimental to me to be able to love the person in front of me. And Mary's been talking about this with me since we were married, probably.
And I'm sure a lot of you have talked about this and are learning to do this as well. So the passage we picked had Nancy read. You were right. It is one we know very, very well. And it was we wanted to have, there was a lot of verses and
There was so
stories
much that we
and
could-
passages that we were talking about, but this is kind of the one we landed on because we ended up talking, as we were having this discussion through, in a focused way here to do this, we kept talking about being present and this idea of calling, and we'll say more about that then, but in these verses, Jesus is calling us. He says, come to me. Just like he said to his disciples, follow me. I just was reading the other day that I think he said that close to 25 times, the phrase follow me. He's used that quite a bit with different people. So, as Jesus would have been seen, yes, he was the Messiah, yes, he was God's son, but to the people he was with, his disciples and others, he was a rabbi, he was a teacher. And a lot of you know this, that each rabbi would have a yoke. And the yoke was pretty much, I guess, what? The teaching of the rabbi?
Yeah, so the rabbis didn't have actual yokes like Nancy has hanging in her garage, but to be yoked to a rabbi means that you're one of his followers. And sometimes, as a follower of a specific teacher or rabbi, you could also be referred to as his son. So, like Paul, I think, was a son of Gamaliel or something. Like, in other words, if he followed a rabbi and learned about the law and the prophets through this rabbi, he would have been called the son of so-and-so who was teaching. So this is rabbinic language from the first century.
So, and Jesus' yoke was an invitation, really, to do two things. And we see this in a lot of his other teachings and other parts where he speaks. The first is to follow him, and then, like we said, to remain in him, to abide in him as he is abiding in us. And so this idea of following and abiding, this idea of belonging, it's from that place of following and abiding, belonging, that is where this reality of being present and being where our feet are, it needs to come from that place.
Yeah, and abiding really means to live with. So if you abide somewhere, it means you're living there. Like that's your house. That's what abide, it talks like Jesus so many times talked about like the Father abides in me and I in him. We're with each other. So that's what that, if you think about that.
So kind of the starting point of that following and abiding, belonging, and then moving into the reality of being present and being where our feet are. And we were talking about how, when I think of the word like be present, I think of God first, because God is always with us. He's always present. He is omnipresent, And however, we were saying that we're made in his image. So
in the same way, so many oftentimes here at Zion, we talk about how God is the creator, okay? And we are like mini creators. So like we're in his image. And so as he created the heavens and the earth, look at the earth and look what humans have created. We have that in us. We're in his image. We create too. We figure things out. We make things. We multiply and fill the earth. In the same way, if we then are in his image, just think about this. If he is with us, we know that God is with us all the time. Anytime we need to talk to him, anytime, no matter what we're going through, we would say God is with us. He is omnipresent. So in the same way, we then, as little, we are in him, we're creating his image, we then are to be present as well. To be with, to be present in God, present in creation, and present in people's lives around us. To be present with him and others, even, yes, with creation.
yeah. And we were saying being present, like the song says, it's exactly where we need to be in any given moment. That's where we need to be. We need to be present. Like they say, where does she say? Yeah, together right here, together in this moment, yes.
Yeah.
So just, throughout the whole song, there's so many calls to that, to just be, we're made to be right here in this moment together. So, it's so easy to feel like it's not enough. It's so easy to feel like, oh, I should be doing this, or look at what that person's doing, or I have this to do, but you know, I know in our lives, the moments where we choose to be present and loving whoever is right in front of us, we never come away from that thinking, oh, we really should have done something else. I just admit, I mean, I'm sure you guys, maybe you haven't had that experience either. I don't think we've ever been like, wow, that was a big mistake. Taking time.
Right.
I mean, I just called Amy Hoffman. When was it I called you, Amy?
Like 2 weeks ago.
Okay. And we were just talking about a little thing, and 2 hours later, she chose to be present for me. I needed to talk to someone. And I said, I'm so sorry I took that time. And Amy's like, this is the best thing I could have been doing. And that meant the world to me. And I'm so thankful. You know, Amy, you do live this very well, you know, for sure. So you just aren't going to regret that. We couldn't help but think of the 50th celebration we just had, which for anyone who doesn't know, Pastor Steve and Joyce have been here 50 years. And what was amazing about all the testimonies?
What was amazing is that time after time, people talked about how Steve, you and Joyce were present. You were there. You were there.
Over and over again. One after another. You were there. That was the thing that has these people, everyone has carried with them. And, you know, today's Father's Day. We have a father who is always present. We can think of examples like this and others, you know, where, you know.
And when we also look at the life of Jesus, I don't think we can escape the fact that when we look at the gospel accounts of Jesus' life, Jesus was very present. He literally didn't have a home. He was traveling from place to place. I mean, he had some places that were kind of like home bases, if you will. But he was with people. Yes, there was times when he went off, he needed solitude, but he was not rushing around. He was present. He would take the time. He might be on the way somewhere and get stopped in his tracks by someone who touched his hem. You know, he would stop. Or he would see a crowd of people and have compassion on them, and he had the ability to stop and to teach and heal them and talk to them.
So we talked about the following and abiding, flowing into the being present, being where your feet are. And then this idea, like Matt was just saying, when we are present, we are available. We're available. Amy was available to me that day because she answered her phone. She was available, and she took the time. And I'm sure she had a lot of other things she could be doing, but she did that. And so this idea of being present makes us available. That leads into the third point, which is that God will use us and lead us from being present. From that place, we will be used and led. Loving the person right in front of us. And in any given moment, tomorrow afternoon at 4:30, each of us is going to have a different person in front of us to love. We're not all going to have the same person.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful because that's how God's kingdom works and fills the earth. That's how his spirit is carried, his love is spread. You know, so this idea is important.
So we have accounts in the Gospels of people, I think it was the Pharisees, who questioned Jesus. They said, what is the most important commandment? And Jesus responded, and he said, well, it's to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And the second one is like it, to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And he goes on to say that all the law and the prophets rest or hinge on those two things. And what Jesus is describing there is two commandments: love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. Those are commands of love. And love, that always takes time. But Jesus narrowed everything down to those two things. And, you know, I think that's a very, I mean, when we look through, I mean, Jesus said, like, everything hangs on these two things. Everything sits on these two things. And so I would say, as me and Mary were talking about this, we were like, well, that's like the most important thing. And so we thought the best thing to do would be to make that kind of like the heartbeat, those two commandments, of the body, if you will, of our lives. In other words, when we're going through life, we're asking ourselves, is this loving God and loving people, like what we're doing right now? You know, what's the most important thing?
And look, I know we've talked about this all before. It's nothing new. We were like, is this really, do we really have anything to say? Because people have heard this stuff before. But like for us, like I said, we just keep circling around, and it's like, we feel like God is wanting us to understand this in a deeper way, to live this more truly. And, you know, we hear his story, this great story of God's love and redemption again, and all the components of it, again and again, and it's a beautiful old story that's always new. And so, yeah, hopefully this will be encouraging you guys in a fresh way today. So we have, as we were talking about this, we have two things we're going to finish up here talking about. One is a more personal example, but we're going to start with one that we came to in the Bible. And I feel like we often talk about this person when we get up here, but it's David. And we thought of David, and we thought of an interesting part of David's story. So if you go to 1 Samuel, I forget what chapter it is, we have been reading it, but what you find is you find David, present and faithful. What's he doing when we first come upon him?
When the prophet Samuel comes to
What's he doing?
anoint a king,
Someone tell us. He's keeping his sheep. He is being present and faithful, watching his father's sheep.
his father's sheep.
And it says, which I never saw this before, maybe you guys did. I know that there's a part where it says that he's like ruddy and handsome in
He
appearance.
has beautiful
It
eyes.
says he had beautiful eyes. Did anyone see that? I've never seen that. We were reading it and we were like, what? David has
And
beautiful
he
eyes.
said that he was pretty handsome too.
Yes, I knew that part. I knew he was a good-looking kid. But so, anyway, we just thought that was kind of funny. But David was watching his father's sheep. And along comes Samuel. David approaches and he says, this is the one. And he anoints him. And then what does David do?
In the same disperses thing.
He goes back
He goes
to
back
watching,
to watching his father's sheep.
which is the same thing he does with Goliath. He leaves watching his father's sheep to take his brother's food and cheese, and bread and cheese.
Bread and cheese, provisions.
Slays Goliath, goes back to watching his father's sheep. And we were just so struck by this, you know, that David was present and faithful, and God used him in these very amazing moments. But it was because he was present and available for God to do. And, you know, I've not been made king of anything. I've never slayed an actual giant, you know, but I can hear that and think, okay, being present, it's a big deal.
It's a very big
Because I'm going to be in the right place if God has it for me to do whatever. Even if it's just faithfully changing diapers each day. I want to do that. I want to do it well.
And it is said of David, so here's David, he's just being faithful in the mundane, he's being faithful with his father's sheep. This is the man of whom it was said that he was a man after God's own heart. And really, what made David a great king is that David first belonged to God. That was number one. If you look at David's predecessor, Saul had a firm grasp on the fact that he was king, and it disqualified him from being king. Whereas David had a firm grasp on God, and it qualified him to be king. David was faithful in everything that he was doing, even the mundane of watching his father's sheep. David even went and served in Saul's court and played a harp for him, and would go back and watch his father's sheep. You know, he's like, king, back to the sheep. So it's in the normal and the mundane, the everyday, that David was faithful, and that's what made him qualified for the, quote, big thing. I would argue that both of them are big, watching sheep and being a king.
But actually what was truly remarkable about him was that he was a man after God's own heart.
Right.
That's what made him remarkable. Not just that he was king, not that he slayed Goliath, and, you know, not even that he watched his father's sheep, but that he was a man after God's own heart.
Yes, correct.
So that brings us to this point. This is the thing. This was our, like, oh wow, okay, moment where we saw something differently. And this has to do with the word calling. And very often, I'll just speak for ourselves. You guys may not see it this way. I do think largely in our American Christian culture, this is how we define calling. We define calling as something we do, what we're going to do for God. I'm called to do this, you know. And I believe, don't hear what I'm not saying. I think God does put things in our hearts to do for Him. I think there's giftings, talents, just stirrings in us, passions in us that we can give back to God for His kingdom work. However, we want to sort of redefine that a little bit and say that our calling actually is who we are, not what we do. Our calling is about who we are, not what we do. If we get that flipped, things can get weird. You know, we can start making,
Yeah, go ahead.
well, we can just start making things what they aren't, you know, things that aren't important become important, things that should be important are no longer important. We start putting our identity not in Him, but in what we do. We start missing, like the song says, these moments of gold. We don't see them as moments of gold
Because they're getting in the way of our calling.
because we're chasing this thing that we feel like we need to do.
So the doing flows out. What we do for God or for creation, it flows out of who we are first. That's where it comes from.
Yeah. So we talked about David. Here's the last thing we're going to talk about. And we're going to talk about Elizabeth. There she is. How old are you, Elizabeth?
18.
She's 18. And Elizabeth is about to complete her required education. So we're not quite done yet, but she's getting there. So she will be graduating formally. She still has a whole list of other things she wants to keep on studying, but we're getting there. Our school year is a little off because of some things in life, but this has been a really interesting thing to live through because, you know, we've got 18 down to babies. And so Elizabeth has gotten a lot of questions lately, which is what you ask someone when they're 18. What are the questions she's getting?
What are your plans?
What are your plans? What are you going to do? What are you planning to do? This is what we do. This is what I ask 18-year-olds when I see them, you know. It's just a script that we have for what this looks like. But it's been really interesting to process this with her and to talk with her about this. And we as her parents, what we have felt very deeply in our hearts as we talk this through with her is we have felt compelled and stirred and led to talk with her about her being, about that she is primarily called to follow Jesus and to belong to Him. And it's been fun to talk about the doing, the dreams and the ideas that might come. And she has a lot. And we talk about like a garden, and she's got these little sprouts coming up, these things that have been in her heart, that many of which have already started. And that's been really neat. But what we have just felt driven back to again and again is, honey, you belong to Him. And if you can be present and be right where your feet are, you are going to be exactly where you need to be for God to lead you and use you. To love the person in front of you, whether that is that you become a doctor or a farmer or anything else in a conversation in the grocery store, it doesn't matter, but you need to start there.
So when we understand that we're a child of the King, and you know our primary calling is to love Him and love those right in front of us. So if we keep that as I'm trying to think what word to use. If we keep that as the center of our lives, any calling, quote unquote, calling that we have in our lives, the doing, if that is subservient to being a child of God and to knowing that first and foremost, and that the most important thing is to be loving Him and loving the person in front of us, being present wherever we are, that means that this doing thing, whether that's, I mean, the examples are endless. I mean, if it's going to college, staying home, going to the foreign mission field, as we call it, or staying here and being a clerk in a store, or staying home and being a farmer. And I mean, the list is endless. I mean, just endless possibilities that someone can do, the things that people can do. But if we keep this idea, this knowledge of our place as a child of the King, that is the most important thing, then whatever we're doing, we will be present and loving people in it. Wherever we are, wherever we go, things are then in the right order. When we switch that and we make what we're doing the most important thing, then we run under a banner and we trample over people. We're selfish, we grasp hold of it and try to make it happen on our own power, and that's usually not very good. It's like never good. But when we keep being a child of the King and loving him and loving others first as the primary thing, all of this comes following after, and it's healthy and good then. And because of that, then we can start something, stop something, because we're keeping this first. We're not bound to this calling. We're not bound to what we're doing. If that makes sense.
So that's Elizabeth, and we could talk about it. And each of you, we're all at different points in our lives, but we can miss the heart of it all if we get that inverted. So it's not that it's not important. It's not that what we do isn't important. It's just that when we're present, we're available for God to do whatever He has for us. Anything. Because that's what's important. What's important is what Jesus said, loving Him and loving others. That's the main thing. So this is really just a being, doing message, which I know we talked about a lot. But so this idea, though, in being where your feet are. So just we pass this encouragement on to you because we've been so encouraged by just what God's been showing us and speaking to us, for so long about this over and over again. Just to follow and abide, to belong, to be present where our feet are, and then to love the one in front of you, to trust Him that He'll use you and lead you in that present reality of being available.
So hopefully this was an encouraging message to you guys. I know it's something, like Mary said, we've just been thinking of and having right in front of our faces for a long time now. And this is not a new message, of course. Humans have, people have been having to learn how to do this for centuries. But I think in our day, there's like new maybe obstacles to that more than there ever have been. And we have to learn how to be present despite all of the distractions that we find in our lives today, which is something very new in the human experience.
And thank God, literally, that Jesus showed us this. He lived this very thing so fully, so beautifully, and He then gave us the Spirit, His very Spirit within us, so that we are enabled to do the same thing. So it brings us back to the passage Nancy read, which says, "Come to me, take my yoke upon you. It's easy, And it is. I mean, it sounds, I said to Matt, like, wow, this sounds really simple. But it actually, it is simple, And I'm sure I wish we could ask each of you, like, where are your feet right now? Where are your feet going to be tomorrow? Because your feet are going to be in a part of the kingdom on this, this earth, our Father's world, that mine aren't going to be, Matt's aren't going to be. That's a wonderful, wonderful thing. This is how the kingdom fills the earth, through His people, His church. This is God's plan. Jesus left and said, you guys got it. Here's the Spirit, and it's still happening until the new heaven and new earth.
The new heaven and new earth. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I think that's all we have. Nancy, do you have anything you want to share or any thoughts?
Something simple,
Okay.
kind of wrap up everything.
Yeah.
Father's Day,
Yeah.
what you talked about.
Perfect.
It's a hymn. Oh, wonderful. Do you mind if I read it? I would love it.
This is my Father's world. And to my listening ears, all nature sings, and around me rings the music of the spheres. This is my Father's world. I rest me in the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas, His hand the wonders wrought. This is my Father's world. The birds their carols raise. The morning light, the lily white, declare their Maker's praise. This is my Father's world. He shines in all that's fair. In the rustling grass, I hear him pass. He speaks to me everywhere. This is my Father's world. Oh, let me never forget that though the wrong seems off so strong, God is the ruler yet. This is my Father's world. Why should my heart be sad? The Lord is King. Let the heavens ring. God reigns. Let earth be glad. And when we are still in the moment, he abides with us. So I just thought this kind of wrapped up everything.
Very good.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay. If you can stand with me for benediction, I'm going to read from Hebrews 13, verses 20 and 21. And now may the God of peace, who brought again from the dead our Lord Jesus, the great shepherd of the sheep, by the blood of the eternal covenant, equip you with everything good, that you may do his will, working in us that which is pleasing in his sight, through Jesus Christ, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen.